Look, maybe we were all wrong, or maybe I was wrong, but let's be fair, everyone in the media, and maybe some still are by the way, were saying there isn't a snowball's chance in hell that Ruben Amorim makes it work at Manchester United. We've got a big sample size now. You know, he's not just been sort of dropped in after Ten Hag was been sacked trying to change the formation in sort of like, you know, with loads of issues, loads of players that didn't want to be there, yada, yada, yada. No, full pre-season, full summer, no European football, and yeah, loads of time and lots of money spent on new signings, certainly a brand new attack. But despite all that, it seems like at the beginning of the season, no, it's screwed. There's no way he's going to make this work. Whether it's him being stubborn, not changing his formation, whether it's like, you know, not the right personnel or whatever. It just seemed like it was doomed. Then, of course, they had the embarrassment against Grimsby, you know, some other losses in the Prem and stuff. And you just thought, there's no chance. But is there a chance? And maybe, I don't want to say we were all, but the thing is, I don't want to, like, single myself out on this, because every frigging dude and his dog should, you know, if dogs been able to speak, was saying, it's not if, it's when Amorim gets sacked. Not just because of the poor performances, because of how lost the team looked, because of, you know, all the negative media in the team and out of the team, with the club generally, and how he was behaving as well, the manager, and what he was saying. It just seemed like it was just when they're going to sack this dude. To the point where the news story was the only reason they haven't sacked him yet is because it's not November yet, and they have to wait till November so they don't have to pay a big severance payoff. So I want to talk about it today, guys. I told you this channel is back in full effect. Few days off, not even a week off, just a few days. But I'm uploading every day again. I think there was a couple of uploads yesterday. So welcome back. Do consider supporting the content by liking and subscribing. Of course, nearly 20,000 subscribers. If you are interested in the talking points I cover and the great game of football, then why not subscribe? And if you do subscribe, hit the bell notifications button icon so you get notified when I upload. Right. So, what's changed recently? Look, they beat Chelsea at Old Trafford. There is a big asterisk / caveat in the shape of a Spanish goalkeeper getting sent off. And of course, despite being at home against 10 men, Chelsea did come back to a 1-goal margin and nearly were applying the pressure to get the a result. You know, away from home, 10 men the whole game. To get a draw would have been okay at Old Trafford. But no, you know, Man United, you know, held out. But the truth is, prior to that red card, Manchester United looked very good. They were pressing Chelsea very, very well. And actually, a lot of people from both the Man United and Chelsea perspective and persuasion were sort of frustrated with, because it's a high-profile game, Chelsea versus Man United. It always has been. And of course, Chelsea's record at Old Trafford is dismal, and it has been for God knows how long. So it was really frustrating for Chelsea fans, neutrals, and in some ways Man United fans to not see what that game was 11v11. Like you don't have the excuse of your goalkeeper getting sent off immediately. So the whole game has been tainted. It's not a real reflection. What did we learn from that game? Absolutely not much. You know, Man United were holding on at home against 10 men at the end, but it doesn't matter. They got the 3 points against Chelsea. It's huge. And of course, the frustrating thing is, in terms of being a neutral analyst, is Man United, before the red card, looked very good the way they were pressing Chelsea. They were all over Chelsea. And actually, you know, of course, it was that kind of high-octane press that caused the erratic behaviour from the defence, and therefore Sanchez. Now, you can't say it was the tactics to get Sanchez sent off, because that was his own idiotic decision. That's not, you know, I can't really praise Man United for that decision of Rob Sanchez. It's more of a criticism of Chelsea. But what's relevant is they did start really well. And indeed, look, Liverpool. I know Liverpool are on a losing streak, and I've been speaking about them recently on the channel here, but it's still a great win. They haven't won at Anfield for like a decade, Man United, and they went there and won. And it was a very strong Liverpool team. they did create chances. Gakpo hit the post 3 times. He scored a goal. Man United still, even despite how dysfunctional Liverpool are at the moment, Man United, who themselves are finding themselves and trying to find their way, they still had to deal with a plethora of immense attacking talent put against them in the shape of that Liverpool attack. They still dealt with Gakpo, Salah, Isak, Ekitike, Wirtz, Szoboszlai, all the other attackers that came on. Do you know what I mean? At one point, it was like a 4-2-4 formation, and Wirtz was one of the midfielders. So, which actually is quite silly and idiotic in many ways from Liverpool. But they did it, man. And look, so I want to talk about United. What are they right now? Well, there's two, apart from the obvious things, they've bought goals. They made, Seshko, the jury's out, yeah? He'll have to be a project one way or another. He's always, whether it was Chelsea scouting him, whether it was Arsenal scouting him, and indeed, of course, Man United scouted or bought him in the end, it was like a profiling thing. Like, this guy looks like he has the attributes to be a useful asset in the Premier League in time. It wasn't like a banker, do you know what I mean? But they did buy 2 absolute bankers, mate, in Mbeumo and Cunha. And although, of course, they've underperformed their XG, Cunha scored, yeah. Mbeumo scored a couple. He should have scored more. It doesn't matter. It's Man United. They've been dysfunctional and weird. That's probably going to happen. But what they have looked is very good. Both of them. Like yesterday, Mbeumo scoring that goal and Mbeumo making intelligent runs, Cunha retaining possession. It was yesterday, the Liverpool game. The way Cunha just held on to the ball. There was that phase of play where the ball was underneath him, he's being pressed, and he somehow just kept possession because he's such a canny Premier League operator and he's got incredible technical ability because he's like, starts for the Brazil team. Do you know what I mean? They've signed these guys. These guys... I know it's an interesting because he's come from Wolves and Brentford respectively, and it was Bryan Mbeumo's first proper breakout season, the year before. Do you know what I mean? And like he's mid-20s, he's not like a kid. But what that last season have showed from both of them is they are not banter era. They are not, they're not going to be part of a banter team. They're not banter players. They're high performers. They're ready. They're in the sweet spot. And they were in danger of looking like they could catch Manchester United-itis, like certain other players, in recent years, your Di Marias, Falcao's, Memphis Depay's, all the other attackers. And even like recently, like Rasmus Højlund played really, really well in Italy. He's gone back there doing really well. Do you know what I mean? So it's almost like, no, we're not going to catch this illness. We're going to actually have the self-respect and form and push through. So there is that, but that's been the same since they've signed him in the summer, and into this season the concern was there. There's a couple of things I want to talk about. One is pretty obvious and straightforward. It's Lemens in goal, because Onana had been really poor, yeah. And then, of course, in the meantime, what they'd been using is Altay India, which is absolutely not a solution, not an option for any Premier League club, let alone one of the stature of Manchester United. So just sorting him out. And bringing in, a goalkeeper that they took a punt on who was playing for Antwerp. He's a young goalkeeper, especially in terms of goalkeepers' age profiles. Young for them is not as young for outfield players. So he's very young. And he was playing for Antwerp. And it's not like, Real Madrid and Barcelona and Bayern Munich and Juventus and Liverpool City and Chelsea were all looking at him. No, Man United were like, we'll take the goalkeeper from Antwerp because they're in the trenches. And he looks, in the 2 games we've seen him, he looks competent. He looks like he's not going to have the, Rasmus Højlund thing where he gets, coming in as a young player to a big role, goalkeeper or striker, and be like, be overwhelmed and, and feel the weight of the shirt. It looks like he could be good. Obviously, it's early doors, but I think, and it's a pretty obvious shout saying the goalkeeper, but I think that's another thing. And through a Chelsea-centric lens, and again, I've been saying this to my multitude of friends that all support Man United. And I say as a Chelsea fan, Mason Mount makes United so much better. I said this before Amorim. I said this when Ten Hag was there. I said that he's He's a great player, Mason Mount. He makes teams better. He will chip in with goals and assists, but he will work really hard. He's intelligent. He's tactically versatile. He comes across as this nice boy when you interview him, but he's got a bit of bite to him. And of course, the first thing I'd say on this channel as well, he should and would be Amorim's dream. Because he's won the Champions League playing in the exact same formation. Not a different iteration of a 3-4-3 or a 3-5-2. Playing the 3-4-2-1. The Tuchel's formation, the inside forward. And he can play as, in the pivot. But in that front three, and it was the correct decision against Liverpool to play, Mbeumo and Cunha and dropping Šeško. Because you've got three really good Premier League operators in Mbeumo, Mason Mount, and Matheus Cunha, who can work, all of them will work really hard, and all of them are tactically versatile and intelligent, and they're all like mid-20s. That's what you should do. Amad, of course, plays the offensive right wing back, getting up and down, and he can be Amorim's Victor Moses almost, or he's very petite. It's almost like when Thomas Tuchel, the aforementioned, tried to play Hudson-Odoi as a wing back. In terms of being more of a diminutive winger, bit of a waste of his talents. But, maybe he makes it work with Amad Diallo. But the functionality, because there was such a chasm in the midfield of Man United and they were just getting played through, if you're going to play a double pivot of Casemiro and Bruno Fernandes, which I still think is their biggest weakness, and not because they're bad players, but Casemiro, of course, his best days are long behind him. But Bruno Fernandes, I think... It's crazy, really, because he is their best attacking player, and you're playing him behind the attack. So the person you partner with him has got to be so. You need Moises Caicedo next to him. Do you know what I mean? That's kind of what you need, and even then, there's a softness to that midfield. But if one of your front three players is a Mason Mount, and if the other two players are really mobile. And work hard in, for example, Cunha and Mbeumo, then you can get away with it, basically. But those are apart from the obvious things about buying sensible targets, proven Premier League players, and they spent a lot of money. I think maybe they should have spent so much money on Šeško. They should have done what they, done. It's so easy to say, make an intelligent cheap signing like the goalkeeper, but do a striker one. It's way easier said than done, but it's very, they spent a lot of money on Šeško. Maybe we'll come good and bang loads of goals, but I wouldn't want to upset their front three at the moment, genuinely. If I was a Man United fan, I'd be saying, I'd still be wanting to put Bruno Fernandes in the front three. Do you know what I mean? Personally. Or finding a way to be honest, I'd just change the formation, to be honest. I'd just do a 4-3-3, and I'd play Mason Mount and Fernandes as attacking eights on front of get signed Carlos Baleba. See, all that money, they should have thrown the bag at Carlos Baleba, have him as a lone six, play Mason Mount and Bruno Fernandes in there. To be honest, you could play a 4-2-3-1, and Mason Mount could be a slightly advanced double pivot player. Bruno Fernandes in the 10, and then you've got a front three. You can do Cunha and Mbeumo and Šeško, whatever. Anyway, it's interesting because they've shown flashes. They have, but historically, Man United, in times of dismal turmoil, they've had these big results, these big games, out of nowhere. You're not surprised they get embarrassing results like Grimsby, but at the same time, you're not surprised that they have these big turnouts and beat Liverpool and stuff like that. Anyway, are we wrong about Amorim? Was I wrong about Amorim? Will he make it? Let me know. Leave your thoughts down in the comments. In the meantime, thanks for supporting the content, for liking and subscribing, and I do hope to see you back here soon. Peace.